are critics have no prayer life. Because if you had a prayer life, you couldn't criticize. Because God would show you who you are. And let me tell you why people critique and why they analyze everything down to the bone. The reason why they critique and analyze everything down to the bone is because they got to shift the focus of how leprosy is eating up their life. So let me take the camera off me. Let me take the spotlight off me. And let me put it on some folks who's trying. But one thing I like about folks who try, anybody watch the movie Radio? Yeah. Y'all let them talk to me. Touch your neighbor and say, I'm a radio. Come on, look at the neighbor and say, I'm a radio. Come on, touch your neighbor and say, I am a radio. How many of you ever watched Forrest Gump? How many of you ever watched Forrest Gump and radio and see the comparison? Radio had a spiritual covering. That even when them boys locked him in the locker room and radio couldn't breathe, radio couldn't see, radio was scared. But when he heard somebody that could help him walking by, he hollered out like blind Bartimaeus. Y'all ain't gonna talk to me. Forrest had something on him that while his other friend got his legs blown off and the other friend got killed. See, Forrest had a life revelation. Y'all ain't gonna talk to me about the revelation that he sat on the bench. See, some of you got to sit on the bench, and this is how you cure your leprosy. Forrest said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you might get. And so I came by to tell somebody that if you would just look at your neighbor and say, hi, my name is Radio, and say life is like a box of chocolates, then you'll find out that your leprosy will begin to turn around. So Jesus said, stretch out your hand. And as the man stretched out his hand, he was made whole. He said, now go show yourself to the priest. Don't say nothing to anybody else, but give the offering that Moses required. I want to close on the offering that Moses required. The offering that Moses required was when he was in the wilderness and found out that God's name was Jehovah Rapha and lifted up a sacrifice unto him. In other words, he was telling the leper that when you go back to the priest, tell the priest that I told you to offer up the offering that Moses said to give. And see, some of us aren't coming out of our leprosy because we have not acknowledged that he is Jehovah Rophika. See, some of you are staying in the same place because you don't want to be healed. I know some people who are more comfortable in a hospital than they are in a house of worship, because a hospital will deal and make them comfortable in their sickness. But I need you to understand, if you want the leprosy to come off, you ought to stand on your feet right now and begin to magnify the Lord. You ought to stand to your feet and make a declaration. Say, I need the leprosy. Just shake it off. I need the leprosy to come off. I need the leprosy off my mind. I need the leprosy out of my heart. I need the leprosy out of my hearing. I need the leprosy out of my vision. I need the leprosy out of my kidneys. I need the leprosy. I need a revelation that men, when they see it, they'll know I've been with God. Touch your neighbor and say, neighbor, I need a testimony that when men see it, they'll know that I've been with God. Touch your neighbor and say, I need a testimony